To call the Crystal Council meeting to order. Let's start with roll call.
Councilmember LaRoche.
Here.
Councilmember Parsons.
Here.
Mayor Adams.
Here.
Councilmember Banks is absent. Councilmember Budashevsky.
Here.
Councilmember Deschler.
Here.
Councilmember Kaiser.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. We have Scout Troop 141 here to present the colors and lead the council and the audience in the Pledge of Allegiance. With the color guard announcer, I'm not sure what the right words are. Could you please step forward?
Presentation of colors.
Presentation of colors, thank you.
Okay. Color guard, advance. Audience, please rise. Scouts salute. Those who are not in uniform, please place your right hand over your heart. Color guard, halt. Please recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard, please post the colors. Color guard, honor your colors. 2. Audience, please be seated.
All right, thank you. I don't want you to go away quite yet. Please step forward. This is the part of the program where the council and the Scout Troop can have a conversation and kind of get to know who you are and where you came from. So if anybody's going to talk to us, I'd ask that you step forward to the microphone so that the people at home are able to hear you as well. Otherwise, the people who are doing sound have to basically stand on their head so that you may be heard at home. So, any questions from the council?
Where's your meetings at? Your Scout meetings?
Okay. We meet at Elim Lutheran Church in Robbinsdale.
Okay, and how often do you meet then?
Every Monday.
Every Monday? Wow, that's a commitment then. What particular badge are you working on now, or do you have a project you're working on at all?
Most of us are working on getting to our next rank advancement. Some of us it's tenderfoot, some of us it's second rank. So that's what we're mainly working on right now.
Very nice.
All right, so you're at different levels.
Okay. So I must be way out of the loop, but when do they allow women? Isn't it Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, or is it just
2 years
Scouts
ago?
now?
I think it's about 2 years ago, isn't it? Do you guys know?
21st century.
Well, we didn't exist until February, so I don't know.
So I believe it's been about 2 years. Do any of the leaders know? 2018.
2018?
Yep.
So the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are no longer, it's just Scouts, and they're all one group?
2 organizations.
2 separate organizations. The Girl Scouts still exist. The Boy Scouts exist, and both genders are welcome. Yep.
Very good.
Can boys go to the Girl Scouts meetings?
I don't believe that's a thing yet.
Not up to the Girl Scouts, no.
Oh.
Right. So, all right, a new troop coming out of Robbinsdale. I gotta say, we've had a few presentations. This was pretty smooth.
Yeah, very nice.
I mean, I saw how nervous you guys were, and it was pretty smooth. You did a nice job. Thank you. So that's very cool. Nancy.
Question for you guys. Do you have any fundraisers coming up? I know that there are some selling wreaths or popcorn, so let us know where you're selling and if we can help.
Go ahead.
So next year, by next year, we ended already. I personally sold a bunch of wreaths because my little brother, he's in Cub Scouts, and he sells popcorn to like all my family, all the people at church. And I had to promise not to steal his customers.
Oh,
Okay. So you guys will be actively fundraising next year. Oh, awesome.
very good. We'll keep our eye out. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? Well, thank you for taking the time to come and visit us. It's always, it makes this process a big deal, and we appreciate, honoring the flag as you do. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
All right, we are going to continue with our agenda. We have an agenda in front of us, and we need to approve that agenda. Looking for a motion. Nancy?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, looking for a second. Julie?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We have a consent agenda in front of us, and I will read into the record the items on that consent agenda. We have the minutes from the following meetings. We have City Council meeting on November 5th and the work session from that same date. Approval of a list of license applications submitted by the city clerk. That list is on file in her office. Approval of a resolution accepting a donation of $30 from Buffalo Wild Wings for Becker Park. And then approval of a resolution amending Appendix IV of the city code, the 2020 fee schedule regarding recycling fees, and then acceptance of the body-worn camera audit report. That is our consent agenda. Looking for a motion on that. Olga?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Julie?
I will second that.
Thank you. All members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. I abstain. All right, open forum. This is an opportunity for people to speak to the council directly during a council meeting if they so desire. Do we have anybody here wishing to speak?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, nobody here wishing to speak. Seeing nobody approach, we will skip by open forum. First, before we get to the regular agenda, we have a public hearing. This is to receive comment and consider new off-site liquor license for DKK LLC doing business as Crystal Wine and Spirits located at 4920 West Broadway, and to potentially impose civil penalties for violations. Our city clerk, Chrissy Series, is here to address the council. Welcome, Chrissy.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Consideration of this liquor license is of unusual circumstances this evening. Mr. David Kruger, the applicant and owner of DKK LLC, contacted me in late October regarding an ownership change for Crystal Wine and Spirits at 4920 West Broadway, in which he shared that he had assumed ownership and began operation of the business on June 25th of this year. However, a new off-sale liquor license application was not received by staff at the time of the ownership change. Mr. Kruger has since submitted a new off-sale liquor license application and applicable fees. Staff has reviewed the application, and a background check was completed by the police department. A hearing notice was published in the Star Tribune on November 9th. Thus far, no correspondence has been received in regards to the proposed new license. And although Mr. Kruger has been cooperative, operating a liquor establishment without proper licenses is a violation of state laws and city ordinances. Therefore, staff mailed a notice of violation to Mr. Kruger on November 7th regarding the potential for the City Council to impose civil penalties for the violations. Additionally, the $2,000 administrative penalty and 10-day suspension the City Council imposed on this establishment last month has not been paid or served. And then at this point, I will now turn it over to our city attorney to talk about the options the City Council has with respect to consideration of the license.
All right. Go ahead, Troy. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As the city clerk indicated, this is a unique set of circumstances here, and so I just wanted to briefly highlight the options that the council has before it. Essentially, when it comes to action on this, you have three basic options. One, you can approve the license application that's submitted as is. You can act to approve, but also impose civil penalties for the history of sales without a license that has occurred in this case, or frankly, you can deny the license. If the council is inclined to deny, there is a resolution in your packet for that purpose. So obviously, if you approve the license, you would act on the resolution to deny. The thing to keep in mind with regard to the civil penalties, the code sets out, and your fee schedule sets out a presumption of penalties, but those are just presumed penalties. Really, the city council has the authority to operate, to set penalties anywhere within the statutory limits, which under the statute is up to a 60-day suspension and a $2,000 penalty. So that's the scope. You're not limited to a single violation or the first violation. So if you were to grant the license and impose penalties, those are the caps that you're dealing with as far as your discretion to impose penalties.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Chrissy or Troy from the council? Go ahead, Julie.
When the third violation occurred, had the ownership transferred yet?
Councilmember Dushler, so the third violation was in April of this year, and the ownership change was in June of this year.
Okay.
So a little more clarification on that. When we exercised the third violation, was that against Mr. Kruger?
Mr. Mayor, was technically it was the previous owner under the previous ownership when the violation occurred. However, we were not aware of any ownership change until late October.
Okay. Late October.
October.
Okay. So from June to October, Mr. Kruger was operating without a license.
That is correct.
Okay. So part of the reason why they may not have served that suspension is because they don't have ownership of the building, and they can't serve that suspension, being the prior owners. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Kruger has been operating the liquor establishment, and it has been open from June until the end of October.
Okay. Is it still operating now?
No, the business has been closed.
Okay. Other questions from the council? Go ahead, Nancy.
As far as I know, I remember reviewing and voting on the penalties for this third violation. Has Mr. Kruger or the previous owner ever contacted the city during all of this, from April through when we met in October to decide?
Councilmember LaRoche, I have not heard any word from the previous owner, and the first contact that I received from Mr. Kruger was late October.
And that was after we imposed the penalty, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Is Mr. Kruger here today?
Yes, he is in attendance tonight.
John?
Do you have an application for a liquor license? And if so, when did you receive it?
Yes, I do have an application, and at the end of October.
Therese?
And he paid the fine or paid the licensing fee at that time?
Yes, he did pay the new liquor license fees, the applicable fees for the new license.
Was he aware of the prior violations?
I believe so.
Okay.
Wow. All right. I believe the first, are there any other questions before I move on?
Not at this time.
At this point, I'm going to open a public hearing to hear testimony and provide the opportunity for the applicant to be heard by council. David Kruger, would you please step forward? So, first question is, from June to October, you've been operating without a license, is that true?
Yes, I guess so.
Okay. And
I was under the impression I could use the prior ones till I got approved.
okay. Had you put an application in, you
I
would.
thought I did, but I guess I thought I dropped off a whole packet, but I never dropped off any checks or anything earlier. And then when I talked to Chrissy here, then she told me exactly what she needed, so I went out and got everything there then.
Okay. So,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, go ahead, John.
So, I mean, have you worked in the liquor industry before this?
I worked part-time at that store for a
What-
couple of years.
And your relationship to the prior owner is?
None.
Other than just an employee?
Yes,
And you said you worked there for
a couple, like 3 years prior,
years?
just part-time basis.
And
Go ahead, John.
I can assume, you know, when I think of a liquor store, you know, the financing of buying a liquor store, how could you maybe elaborate on that? Could you talk about financial responsibility it takes to take on a business like that?
Like, how much did it cost, or?
Yep, cost or how, you know, inventory itself. I mean, the
Inventory was $78,000 and the store was $200,000.
200,000.
Yes.
So you own the building too?
No, I do not.
Okay,
We lease that.
you lease the building.
Yes.
From the current leaseholder or license holder?
No,
I guess
the old owner, it's his sister that actually that bought the building.
okay.
So she has the building then. So he has nothing to do with the building or anything like that. So
Okay.
lease payments goes to her.
All right. Before we go much further, I'd like to talk to our city attorney on procedure here. Once the violation has been admitted, is there a deferral of the hearing? What is the proper procedure in this place? It doesn't feel at all like the other procedures we've been doing.
Mr. Mayor and Council, you're certainly correct in that it's different in that you have both a proposed license application before you and a potential penalty before you, essentially wrapped together in the same hearing process. As far as procedurally how you move forward, frankly, both involve an opportunity for the applicant to be heard and for the council to consider an act. So you're able to proceed, and certainly I would give the applicant an opportunity to speak to both the violation and the license application, basically providing him an opportunity to, provide whatever input he would like.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Mr. Kruger, is there anything more on the violation side that you would like for us to know about? I know.
I just thought the old company would take care of that. That I wouldn't have to show up, as long as it wasn't on my time of owning it then.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the council around this issue? Go ahead, Julie.
Well, to me, it does make sense that the previous owner, then the violation for selling underage alcohol was incumbent upon the old license holder to pay the fine and the suspension. But because that process takes so long, now a new person is buying the property or buying the business. But why you wouldn't get a license, I mean, I don't understand that. I mean, I would think if you're buying a business, you would look into what the proper protocol is.
I
And
thought
so-
I submitted the application, but I guess I was wrong, so I was waiting, because I know they said it takes a while to get the process done in that, so I was just waiting
Okay.
and that, but I thought I actually had all of it in there because I just went and made copies of everything that I had, and I guess I missed a few things that Chrissy then told me I needed to get.
I'd like a point of clarification. Did we receive any information prior to October for an application from him?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Kruger did inquire and fill out a business information form and notified city staff that he was interested in getting a new liquor license. However, and we were told that he would be following up. However, we never received any follow-up.
You were told you would get follow-up from Mr. Kruger?
Correct.
Okay.
Jim, Mayor Jim?
Yes.
When were you notified? Or when was that notification and that interest received?
I believe Mr. Kruger contacted city staff in the middle of May.
Okay. Thank you.
Therese?
So you bought the business, in June, and from when the old owner sold it, was there any period of time the business was closed, or was it
No, it was,
continually operating?
yes,
Okay. Had you ever owned a liquor store before?
no.
Did you contact like an attorney or anything to help you through this process?
No, I did not.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Point of clarification, when we were discussing the underage violation, that is different than the violation that we're talking about here of operating without a license.
Right. Well, I didn't know if we were
And
going
that,
to make them,
no, that applies to the prior owner, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Correct, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you. All right. We have to figure out what we want to do here. We also have an application for liquor license. Is there anything you'd like to add to what you've already spoke about your process of applying for a liquor license?
I guess I can't add much more besides, I guess I totally screwed everything up here and put everybody in a bad place.
Okay. All right, we have a violation in front of us, operating without a liquor license. And outlined by staff were basically three options. One is to approve with penalties, and the other one is to not approve
Or continue.
or continue,
Yeah.
for that matter, yeah. Anybody from the council have a direction they are interested in going?
well, I'm kind of a softie. And I really am disappointed, that you didn't stay on top of the license thing. But I know it's hard when you probably don't have a ton of money. You're starting out in a business. You're overwhelmed. I just know from finishing off my father's business after he passed away, there were so many things that I didn't quite understand. And, it's easy to say, well, did you have an attorney? Did you have an accountant? Well, every time I picked up the phone to talk to an attorney, it was $250. You talk to an accountant, it's another $100. So, I guess I'm disappointed they don't use the city more, and maybe the city, could reach out to new business owners and say, is there anything we can help you with? Did he get any advice to use, like the business helpline, kind of thing that we're involved in a little bit?
Councilmember Deschler, I'm unsure of that. I don't know that.
Okay. And so I'm a proponent of business, and I'm a proponent of, small business getting started. So I'm more inclined to say, okay, let's, please check with us and, do it right going forward. And if you goof up again and don't follow protocol, then, I'm all about telling you I'm sorry, you're out of business now. But I want to believe in people so bad, and I want to give them a chance, I guess, is where I'm at on it.
So would you fall and pass the license with no penalties? Is that kind of where you're at?
Maybe a very small penalty because, he's already been closed for a while now, so you could kind of stay the license suspension and, do a $100 or $200 financial penalty. I can't imagine now, especially with the business being closed, he probably has any money. Or a lot. I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you're loaded, but
No.
if you were loaded, you'd be buying, assholes and not.
Got a question for Chrissy. Has every other part of his application been completed satisfactorily?
Councilmember Kaiser, all of the documents are in order.
Thank you. And how long have you been closed?
20 days, 21 days.
I'm inclined to agree with Julie there that you've already suffered some financial loss, right, for being closed for 20 days?
Yes.
And maybe I'm being naive here, but it sounds like your mistakes were your own naivete, right? Is that
Yes.
the right word? You just didn't quite know what you were doing? No offense.
No, I
But-
don't take offense to it, because
But that's true. You didn't
I was
quite
over
know
my
how
head,
the
I think.
process worked. Or maybe, I I guess I agree with Julie here that he's already been, he's already had financial repercussions for
I have
his
a,
mistakes.
okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nope, I'm done, thanks.
I have an additional question relating to the information, the state license for purchasing. Do you have a state license to purchase alcohol at this point in time?
I submitted all the applications
Okay.
with the insurance company stuff that you needed and all that with it.
Okay, and you submitted that to the state?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what their process looks like?
No, I do not.
Okay. Chrissy, do you know that answer?
Mr. Mayor, if you're referring to the buyer's card,
Thank you, yes.
that is issued after approval, city
After-
council approval of a license.
Awesome, thank you. Go ahead, Nancy.
I have a question, Mr. Kruger. Did you accept any alcohol deliveries?
Yes.
And when was that period? Without your license and without
The whole time there.
the whole time?
Yes.
And how much approximately was delivered? So, just a ballpark, how many trucks, how many days, if you
Well,
recall
you
that?
have in a week you have about 6 trucks that come in, and they all vary. You can have $200 or you could have $1,500 on the truck.
So the truck, the delivery person has no idea whether you're licensed or not, right?
No.
They're making their delivery and collecting their money.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
John,
And how were you paying those deliveries? Were you paying them on the spot, or were they
They
invoiced?
were all COD.
Cash on delivery?
Yes.
All right.
Olga?
Does Chief Revering have any experience with, or any additional information that we might be missing, if that's okay to ask? Is that okay, Mayor?
Yep, that would be fine. Go ahead. Chief Revering?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I don't have any additional information other than I think it might be prudent to ask your applicant if he has any measures in place to make sure the under 21 sales to minors isn't going to happen. I am concerned at the fact that he bought the business from his former employer, and the former employer's sister owns the building, so I have some concerns that this is going to continue to happen at this business. So that's the portion that I'm concerned about, is the sales to under 21 folks.
Yep, I agree with you. Thank you for that. Go ahead, John.
Well, I think there has to be a fine involved, at least. I mean, obviously you've been closed for 20 days. That covers the violation, but there is a fine. There should be a fine involved, and I mean, you can just tell me right now what happens if we don't approve your liquor license.
Well, then I'd have to find a buyer for it.
You have to find a buyer.
Yes.
And in these 20 days that you have not been in business, have you been approached at all?
No.
No, you have not. And you have not actively seek?
No, I have not.
Okay. Yeah, so, again, the biggest issue is underage sales. And in that store, as you can tell, there's been a,
Yes.
there's, obviously that we have not had the kind of results that we want to see in that location. And, frankly, our concern is that, the money makes it in the till, but it's an open door for anybody who walks in that door and sells there. So based on your experience, and are you telling me that that's going to stop? You're going to, what do you have in place to prevent that?
Well, we're on the computer itself. You have to punch in a birth date, the birth date to actually get it to ring up.
Are you checking IDs?
Yes.
And do you understand the differences in IDs?
Yes, I've been to the alcohol awareness classes.
Okay, so you've been through training. Do you realize that we also have training here as well for the city? Have you participated in that at all?
I've been to the ones in the city hall here.
Okay.
With the officers in that.
And that was recent, or was that?
Would have been 8 months ago, I think it was.
Any more?
I think I'm good.
Have you ever had a violation?
I have not. I've passed every single one.
You've passed every single one. And you've been tested before?
Yes.
All right.
I think I've been tested 4 or 5 times.
How many employees do you have?
2.
2. Have they been through the same training that you've been?
Yes, they have.
Okay.
And one, Presley, has never gotten a violation, and she's probably had 10 of them.
Okay.
And she's passed every single one. And the other one we let go then because of the violation.
Okay. All right. So I'm sensing that we're not interested in denying. Is that correct? Is anybody here interested in denying?
I would consider it, but I'm still thinking on this.
Okay.
I'm very disappointed. It seems like the owner and the building owner, the sister and the owner, that they didn't share that information with you, with the fines and the previous penalties. You're walking into this almost blind, and I feel bad that you stepped into this. However, it's the onus is on you as an owner to follow.
If I do have to pay the fine, I'll pay the fine.
Oh,
for it.
it's just the circumstances that I'm very nervous about, I guess, is what I'm saying. Are you involved at all? Are those two involved at all with the everyday business?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Your relationship is strictly landlord-tenant?
Yes. Actually, they live in Virginia. The landlord does.
Okay. All right. I tell you what, I'm going to kind of weigh in here a little bit. I thought I was coming in to deny tonight. I really did. I too am interested in not having a vacant building in Crystal. Small businesses are something that I'm involved with, and most of the people on the council here are involved with some kind of small business. Is that true still? At least I think half of them are. So with that in mind, I'm inclined at this point not to deny, but I don't want to give you any room to mess up.
No.
I don't want to get, we have this policy, 3 times and pretty much your license is suspended for underage drinking. If we do anything here tonight, any underage drinking, I would insist that would be a second occurrence under our guidelines.
Second, I think he needs to go 36 months without an issue. If you can't survive 36 months without an issue, your business is done.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. I mean, we gotta, and I also think that you need to pay the $2,000 fine as well.
So you would say step 3.
Yep.
Is there any, City Attorney Troy?
Yes.
Is there any problem with instituting something like that?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I guess I'm not exactly clear what the proposal
I think the
would be.
proposal is to issue the license and basically one strike you're out and then deny the license.
I see. So, Mr. Mayor and Council, yes, I mean, that could be communicated. It would be approval of the license with that warning.
With conditions.
There wouldn't be, essentially you have the discretion, if there is a violation, to come back to, like I've indicated here, to exercise your authority to suspend up to 60 days and impose up to a $2,000 fine. So that always exists. So if the gentleman's before you a year from now, you would have the ability to deviate from your presumed penalties and go straight to a longer suspension or the full $2,000 penalty. So yes, you can craft it now with a warning. If you choose to impose a civil penalty right now, you can do that. Some folks had mentioned opposing some civil penalty. If you want to do that, you can do that. Certainly with that warning that if you come back, then expect this as being the result, the suspension.
Okay. So if we decide to do suspensions, That would start after the issuance of license. Is that correct?
Correct, Mr.
Troy?
Right, yeah.
And if we choose to have a suspension, we can have that be worked out between our city clerk and the business owner, and they can figure out what that looks like.
That's correct.
So we have that latitude. Okay. Anybody have anything they want to do for a motion on this? I don't know how else to kind of feel out the whole field here.
Maybe we start with a motion and see where we're at.
Why don't we start with that? Therese?
I would suggest maybe breaking it into pieces. I mean, we can vote to approve or deny his liquor license and then have another motion on a penalty. Would that work that way? That's just a suggestion.
Can we break that up, or do we have to have it together?
Mr. Mayor, technically you have both issues before you, so you could handle them separately.
It's already broken up.
All right, correct. All right. Let's start with the approval.
So I'll make a motion to approve his liquor license.
All right.
Should've.
Looking for a second on
I
that?
will second.
Thank you, Therese. All members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Roll call.
Councilmember Kaiser.
Aye.
Councilmember LaRoche.
Nay.
Councilmember Parsons.
Aye.
Mayor Adams.
Aye.
Councilmember Budaszewski.
Aye.
Councilmember Deschler.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. In case of penalties for operating without a license, I'd like to make a motion to enforce the dollar amount penalty of $2,000 and a 10-day suspension to be worked out between the city clerk and the owner.
I second the motion.
Thank you, John. Discussion? Julie?
Well, he's already been closed for 20 days now. So do you want him to do another 10 days beyond that?
I do. John?
But with the understanding that you can work that out with the city clerk, so
It doesn't have to be
it
continuous.
doesn't have to be continuous. So you can pick a day which you're closed. So if if you assume that Wednesday is a day that works well, we close on Wednesday for the next 10 weeks.
Could
Is that
be-
understood?
It could be Sunday.
It could be Sunday, right?
You don't want to close on football Sunday.
Oh, come on.
Olga, you had your hand up.
My question for the violations that you were saying to bump up the level of violations so that if there is a violation, it will be like second stage or third stage. Where does that come in? Was that supposed to be attached to the license approval, or is this going to be another?
Should have been here.
Should be
No,
part of this one.
Mr. Mayor and council member, actually, that would come if there is another violation. So you wouldn't need to condition this penalty on that. I mean, you could if you wanted to. But the idea is you're imposing a penalty now for past actions, the selling without a license. If there's another violation, you can at that time impose whatever penalty you believe is appropriate, given the warnings given at this stage.
So
So, point of clarification. Olga, would you please follow through?
Oh, my gut feeling is that for me, that kind of, it doesn't follow logically with what we're dealing with here today. So my preference would be to leave that off, but it's up to.
Okay. Julie?
yeah, I mean, in theory, this is a brand-new liquor.
Correct.
We shouldn't be, at this point, giving him a 10-day suspension and a $2,000 fine for those previous infractions. What we're doing today is a fine and a suspension because the fact that he operated for 2 or 3 months without a valid liquor license.
4
Okay.
months.
4 months. So
4 months.
So you're saying that precedes the approval of this license? and the violation doesn't,
I'm saying the 10 days and the $2,000 fine, the onus for that is really on the previous owner, because those infractions were made when the previous owner had control of the business.
I disagree.
He's the, okay.
I disagree.
Well, that's fine. When you made the motion,
I don't want to argue with you. I just want to make sure that we understand the same, because if we're misunderstanding, I want whomever is misunderstanding to kind of know where we're at. The violation occurred with Mr. Kruger. This isn't the underage drinking violation. This is the violation of Mr.
Right.
Kruger operating without a license. So I think the penalty and the suspension, if there is desired to be one, applies to him. Does that make sense? Are we saying the same thing?
yes, but this is a third violation.
We're not treating it as a third.
We're not treating it as an underage.
Okay, all right. I see what you're saying.
I think I messed you guys up. I brought this whole thing up.
Yeah, we're being more closer to the statute, which gives us the full.
I see.
Gives us the full
this
spectrum.
This is what we just got.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does
Mr.
that-
Mayor,
Yes.
this may help. I mean, keep in mind that the chart that the council has adopted last year or whenever it was, 2 years ago, that's just a set of presumed penalties.
Right.
You're not bound by that. So it's not a third violation, second violation. The point is, you would be imposing, if this were to pass, you'd be imposing this penalty for the 4 months of selling without a license. There's arguments that actually that could be told. There's an argument that the presumed penalty for that is actually denial of the license, and of course we're past that stage. But you have discretion up to the 2,000 and up to 60 days for this selling without a license.
Okay, now.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Is
Therese?
there any flexibility in the amount of the penalty?
Yeah, we would have to vote this motion down and then have a new motion. But you're welcome to express what you're thinking right now during discussion.
I agree that there should be a penalty, but I think $2,000 is too steep. I would move to reduce the penalty to $500.
We have to vote this motion down, and then you would have to, repropose.
Oh, okay.
Or there's another way, you would offer to amend the motion, and you'd need to have that second as well. We do a vote on the amendment.
Can I move to amend the motion?
You certainly may.
To reduce the penalty from $2,000 to $500?
All right, looking for a second on that amendment?
I'll second that.
All right, all members in favor? This is on the amendment part only.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification's sake, is that retaining the 10-day suspension?
Correct.
Okay, 10-day suspension, $500 fine. Just
And
wanted
we're
to be
voting on the change, we're not voting on the penalties.
correct, just the amendment.
All right. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Roll call.
Councilmember LaRoche,
Nay.
Councilmember Parsons,
Nay.
Mayor Adams,
Nay.
Councilmember Budaszewski,
Nay.
Councilmember Deschler,
Aye.
Councilmember Kaiser.
Aye.
Motion fails.
All right. So the motion that stands is $2,000 fine with 10-day suspension.
That's correct.
Looking for any further comment in relationship to that motion. Seeing none, all members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. So, Mr. Kruger, your license has been approved, but the penalty is going to be $2,000 with a 10-day suspension. You will work with our city clerk to figure out what days those will be. I recommend making sure that any employees that you hire know exactly the condition of the transition that took place so that they don't put your business in jeopardy.
Yes.
Because if we see you before us in the near future, we do still have the full range if we need to. That would be unprecedented, but under the conditions, I think you might understand.
I understand.
All right. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I don't.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right. So we will move on next to our first item on the regular agenda. If I can find it. Somehow my papers got all shuffled. All right, here it is. This is expenditures of $25,000 or greater. We'll read those into the record at this point in time. North Valley Inc. for 2019 mill and overlay, $37,356. Logis for the monthly network service and application support for $32,140. Traffic Control Corporation for the flashing yellow lights located at Douglas and 36th and Douglas and 42nd for $36,045. Waste Management for October HRG recycling costs, $51,862. Create Construction, LLC, concrete alley repairs and miscellaneous concrete repairs for $59,643. Health Partners, Inc. for November health insurance premiums of $102,049. Minnesota Para for paydate 11/1/19 for the employee required contribution, $58,863. Total disbursements of $25,000 or greater are $377,960.96. Are there any questions on any one of these items? Seeing, Julie, go ahead.
No, I just move approval of the expenses over $25,000 as read.
Thank you. Looking for a second. Olga?
I'll second that.
All right. All members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right. Item number 2 on the regular agenda, Financial Director Gene McGann is here to address the council relating to paying off bonds. Welcome, Gene.
Good evening. This evening, we are asking the council to consider doing a partial prepayment on the 2008 and 2009 general obligation improvement bonds. These bonds were issued in 2008 and 2009 for road improvements. They have final maturities in 2024 and 2030. Currently, the 2008 bonds, there's $625,000 outstanding. This partial payment would be of $495,000, and that would be paid on the February 1st, 2020. In addition to the $495,000, we would also make the regular principal and interest payment. Therefore, at February 1st of 2020, the 2008A bond would be paid off. The 2009A bonds, they have $1,675,000 outstanding. We are recommending a partial prepayment of $1,020,000, and that would call the 2025 through 2030 bonds. In addition, of course, the city would make their regular principal and interest payment on February 1st of 2020, in addition to the $1,020,000 for the partial prepayment. The purpose for doing this is to save the city interest costs. So at this point, if you would like to consider doing the partial prepayment or partial call of the 2008A and 2009A general obligation bonds.
All right. Any questions for Gene? Go ahead, Nancy.
Trying to process this, given our earlier discussion tonight, is there any benefit of keeping it as we're reworking numbers?
Currently, these bonds carry an interest rate between 3.5% and 4.35%. The revenue or the cash available within these debt service funds is 100% restricted for the repayment of this debt.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Julie?
Well, if there's no more further questions, I guess I'll move approval that we prepay and redeem the city's outstanding general obligation improvement bond series 2008A and partially for series 2009A.
All right.
I'll second
Nancy,
that.
thank you. Can we do this in one resolution? All right, we have 2 listed in our sheet. Okay, so we will do that in one resolution. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, all members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Gene. We will consider the first reading of an ordinance adopting and recodifying of the Crystal City Code. Our city attorney, Troy Gilchrist, is here to address the council. This is a very special day for us. Welcome again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and let me start by saying, finally, we get here. I had hoped to have this reach this stage at the end of the summer, but here we are, late fall. What you have before you is a relatively simple ordinance that adopts the entire updated code. So just to kind of go back in history a little bit, this was, I didn't go back and look at the exact time, but we're several years into this where the council undertook this rather ambitious undertaking to first develop a committee that started with 14 as a task force, the Crystal City Code Task Force, to sit down and review the entire code. So a very, again, ambitious undertaking. They worked very diligently over a year and a half, or maybe even 2 years, I think, before we got through that all. And that's a review of roughly 660 pages of code that the task force went through. So through that, they made several recommendations, asked a ton of great questions, and gave a lot of direction. And then, as you recall, as we then, I worked with the council in work session, many work sessions, to have you review each chapter as the changes were proposed, asking policy questions for direction. And then, based on the direction given at those work sessions, then worked on drafting the changes to the codes and bringing those back. Sometimes going back to the drawing board a few different times before the council was ultimately comfortable with a particular chapter. Worked all the way through the code that way, and then came back at several times and made certain corrections to various chapters. And then finally, more recently, went back and did corrective ordinance for the first half of the code, and then came back with the second half of the code. Once that was done, then it was a matter of going back to the beginning and trying to format it using a uniform set of rules and references and moving the history notations to the end at a chart and index at the end of each chapter. So that actually ended up taking longer than I had hoped, but here we are, got through it. So now what you have before you is a chapter that has uniform usage of terms, a uniform format, is cleaned up considerably. The council, as you know, gave a great deal of direction to remove older provisions that frankly just were out of date, not consistent with current provisions, cleaning things up, clarifying, using language that is hopefully easier to read. That was a big push of the task force, really flagging language, the legalese that crept into the code over the years. So there was a great deal of cleanup. So the code you have before you now, well, let me say the old code had approximately 247,634 words. The current code, as proposed, has 213,477. There were 660 pages in the old code. The current one has 565 pages.
Can you repeat that?
I'd be happy to. The old code had 660 pages. The new code has 565 pages. The old code had 247,634 words, give or take. The new one has 213,477. So that's a saving of 95 pages and 34,157 words. What gives that a little bit of context, though, is, especially on the page count, part of the direction that the task force gave were to do things like the old code had a number of embedded lists. So it would be, within the same paragraph, it would contain lists. The task force thought that was difficult to read, and it would be easier to read to break those out and actually drop them down into separate lines. And so I think if you were to consider that actually added a number of pages to the code. So I think we're really looking at realistically less than 565 pages if you were to compare apples to apples between the old version and the new version. But the point is, I agree with the task force. I think it does make it much easier to read and follow when those are broken out. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but again, it's a ton of work by a ton of people, the task force members, the council, having to read not only the entire code, but drafts of changes to all of the different chapters. So I give you a huge amount of credit for going through that and asking some very good questions and really giving some good direction to take out old, antiquated things that frankly just didn't make sense anymore. And that's not anything, a hit on Crystal. Any code that has been pieced together over decades is necessarily going to have older language that needs to be updated. So frankly, you undertook a task that it's difficult for cities to undertake just because it costs a lot of money, takes a lot of time to go through all that, and the commitment of all the people that spent time, and staff obviously spent a huge amount of time on this as well. So anyway, so enough of that. But what you have before you is a simple 2-page ordinance that adopts that code. So at this point, it would just be a matter of acting on first reading, and then it would obviously come back hopefully in December for final adoption. So you can say that we adopted it in 2019.
All right. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Julie.
And this is just kind of a fun little thing, but that you recall, what was like the oddest, weirdest ordinance that was dropped? From, years ago that has no... There was one I remember about a pool table, like you couldn't have a beer or something within 10 feet of a pool table or something.
Yes, I do. I think there was a bowling alley provision associated with that. Yeah, bowling alley within so far. Some of the health provisions that were well-intended and needed several years ago when outbreaks of certain diseases came out and attempts were made to try to minimize that. Nowadays you read that and you realize it's kind of no longer valid. And so I think some of those provisions were most notably out of date. But there's some interesting things. My career, there's certainly other ones. I've had a small city that still had ordinances related to wooden sidewalks, and every man, woman, or every man would have to donate so much time to the cities to donate their time to help the city, progress. So there are a lot of interesting ordinances out there that are historic and still on the books. So you didn't have anything near that, but certainly ones that needed to be updated.
Very good. Nancy?
A couple of things. Number one, just wanted to thank again those 14 original and those subsequent neighbors who all got together to go through that beastie.
Right.
That was amazing. Is that the current code binder next to you?
No, I believe this is the older one, the historic one.
Oh, the historic, because I thought our viewing audience might get a kick and see how big that is as a visual. If you can hold that up and if the camera can show just what they went through.
Yeah, this is what the task force went through.
That's what the task force went through, page by page.
And the council.
And the council and you and staff. So thank you. A question too, just if there are things, say changes in state law like tobacco T21, if the age is raised, would that, things like that as state law comes in, amendments would need to be made for future.
Yep. Mr. Mayor and council member, correct. A code is never done, frankly.
Right.
There's always going to be changes. But the point is now you have a kind of a fresh base on which to work. And I should also point out that the entire proposed code is on the city's website. If you go to the city code section, there's a note in the upper right where you click on it and you see the entire new code there. And frankly, some of the chapters that are there reflected the recodification of those chapters as you work through them. But the link to the entire code is the one that's reformatted and is frankly would be adopted by this ordinance that's before you. There it is, proposed in 2019 code. So that's there. And if you were on second reading were to adopt this ordinance that's before you, then that's what you'll be adopting.
Thank you.
Obviously, we didn't want to print out this for everyone.
A little less thick. Thank you.
Curious, is this searchable? Like if I wanted to find the ordinance on dog licensing or whatever, Could I search that electronically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Very
I
cool.
think Mark is going to do a search right now. No?
We'll see.
He started.
He's got control of
Oh,
the-
there he is. There it is, Therese. He found it.
Oh, my gosh.
All right. I am looking for a motion. Nancy.
I would like to move to adopt the following ordinance, the reading of which was dispensed by unanimous consent, adopting the recodification of the Crystal City Code.
Thank you. Looking for a second. Olga?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Troy. I almost feel like I should be asking what you're going to do with the time that you have now.
Always more projects.
We do have announcements. The Crystal Business Association will be meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the community room. I believe they have a special guest coming to speak tomorrow morning, so if you are a member, please don't miss that. City offices will be closed Thursday and Friday, November 28th and 29th, in observation of Thanksgiving Day holiday. The next City Council meeting will be December 3rd at 7 p.m. here at the Council Chambers at City Hall. Local organizations are invited to lead the Pledge of Allegiance here at Crystal for our council meetings. Please contact staff if you're interested. It will look similar to like what the Boy Scouts did tonight, or you could just do the pledge. Reminder that all meetings and work sessions are available for viewing and listening on our website at www.crystalmn.gov. Do we have any other announcements from the council that didn't hit the hit list? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make an motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Looking for a second. John?
Second that motion.
All right. All members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We will be back with you in December. Have a great night.